You know, here we are midsummer here in Iowa, and I'm just out doing some scouting, glassing deer, kind of taking an inventory of what I've got, and doing it from a distance. I've got one of the new Alpen spotting scopes. It's a 20 by 60, but one of the things I really like about this, it comes with a tripod, and it's got micro adjustments, so it's real easy to zoom in and move around and find those animals. But basically, this is a great tool to help me manage the farm all year round. If you're looking for a great way to do some scouting, do it in the evening from a distance with a nice spotting scope. Let's talk a little bit about Alpen and Bresser optics. Now, they have a full line of optics, but what I want to talk to you now about is rangefinders. They have several different varieties of handheld rangefinders and the new bow rangefinder. Now, for you bow hunters, you go ahead and sight in at 20 yards and you calibrate it to your 20-yard pin, and when you're at full draw, whatever you point in that 20-yard pin on an object, it'll tell you the yardage. So whether you like a handheld or you want to put one on your bow, we have both options for you here at Alpen and Bresser Optics. You know, good optics are a must for a hunter. The new Alpen Tetons. They're lighter, they're better in low light, excellent glass. You'll be hard pressed to find that glass for under $1,000. Everything that you would want in a pair of optics. I know what I'm looking for, and once I know what I'm looking for and find what it is, that's what I'm interested in buying. The bottom line is they're affordable, they're lighter, and they're great in low light. The new Alpen Tetons. Another deer coming out. You know, good optics are a must for a hunter, particularly binoculars, not only during hunting season, but times like this when it's time to start scouting. But there's one thing you need to do when you get your binoculars that a lot of people don't realize. You need to set them up for yourself. Everybody's eyes are a little bit different. And here's how I do it. It's simple and easy. Just take the binoculars and just kind of grab good focus on an object, and I go and put my hand over the left lens. The diopter ring, which is on the right side, I will go ahead and adjust that until that right eye is in focus. Once it is, I take the hand off the other side, both eyes in focus, and you're ready to go. It's simple and easy, and it's a must that you do this before you go out and use them. You know, here we are midsummer here in Iowa, and I'm just out doing some scouting, glassing deer, kind of taking an inventory of what I've got, and doing it from a distance. I've got one of the new Alpen spotting scopes. It's a 20 by 60, but one of the things I really like about this, it comes with a tripod, and it's got micro adjustments, so it's real easy to zoom in and move around and find those animals. But basically, this is a great tool to help me manage the farm all year round. If you're looking for a great way to do some scouting, do it in the evening from a distance with a nice spotting scope. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to On the Hunt with Alpen Optics. Once again, I'm your host, Rick White, and tonight's show, special guest, Lars Erickson, all the way from Montrose, Colorado. And of course, don't forget our weekly special.
Hey, Rick.
Well, welcome back to On the Hunt with Alpen Optics. And folks, I'm coming to you live outside. Usually I'm on my laptop inside the house, but I had some internet difficulties, so I'm outside, and I apologize if there's some background noise that you may be hearing. It's a beautiful afternoon and people are mowing their yards in the area. But anyways, once again, welcome to the show. And, I want to touch just a little bit. My turkey season is actually over. I had one more hunt I had scheduled, but I decided to cancel it. I've had a great season and a long season, and I was ready to get some things done at home. But the folks that are still out there are still having some pretty good luck, especially out east. But as it is always late season, it gets a little bit more difficult in certain areas. So those that are still out there, I wish you the best of luck, and as always, hunt safe. But we're going to get right into the show here. Our guest comes all the way from Montrose, Colorado, Mr. Lars Erickson. Lars, how are you doing this evening?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, before we get into too many things here, and we're going to talk about some different things on this week's show, some Western Colorado fishing, and of course, Colorado elk hunting. But why don't you tell the folks just a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm born and raised here in Montrose, Colorado. Elk hunted my whole life. Basically, my dad taught me to elk hunt so that I could call elk for him. So that's how I began the process and started working in the industry a little bit, making the elk calls, turkey calls, and that's how it all began. So here I am talking to you.
Montrose, Colorado. Whenever I hear that, I always think of the name Mr. Wayne Carlton, Mr. Elk himself. And I know I talked to you the other day. You said you had lunch with him just recently, and Wayne's been fighting some health issues the last few years, but you said he's doing pretty good.
Yeah, Wayne's doing great. Is same old guy, ornery, always telling a joke, life of the party, life of everything he's involved in. You know how he is. You can't not smile when you see him. So
right. Wayne was one of those folks that helped bring the diaphragm call to the elk hunting world. I've had the opportunity to hunt with him just like yourself, and I've learned so much from him over the years. So I hope he's doing good. Now I'll have to give him a call here sometime. But let's jump right into things here a little bit. And I'm kind of going over some of my notes here because I had to bring them outside here with me. But so elk hunting in Colorado, what can we look forward to? The folks that are heading out west this coming season, what can they look forward to? Are the elk numbers up? Are they down? Are they going to be bugling? I know the last couple of years they haven't been bugling that great. Sure. And if the herd is down a little bit, why is it down? And I don't know what the wolf situation is in your area, but maybe just touch a little bit on some of those things.
Sure. It depends on what part of Colorado you go to. There's a large population of elk in Colorado, especially on the western slope. In my area, there's over 34,000 elk just within an hour, depending on which direction you go total. In our herd, there's some issues going on down in southern Colorado with calvings issues. They're not producing. So the numbers have declined a little bit around here, but up in northern Colorado, the elk population is doing great. Everything's good there. So as far as them bugling, it just depends on the day. Obviously, things are warmer for some reason. Don't know why, but that's happening. Depends on the season, how that falls. And as the later the season gets, for archery anyways, it gets better, especially the last week or two. Sometimes they're bugling in rifle season. I actually called in an elk for a friend on third rifle season here in 4 inches of snow. So it just depends. So,
all the years that I've elk hunted and I've had the opportunity to hunt even with yourself, but there's some years that's the kind of the mystery, at least for me in the elk woods. One year you're out there and elk are just bugling everywhere and going crazy and running to a call. And, the same time next year, they're bugling very little. They're tougher to call in. The elk are still there. And sometimes those seasons, like you just said, they're bugling better in those rifle seasons. And sometimes I've been out filming rifle hunts and they're not bugling at all. So it's just, I don't know. Do you think you think it's weather related as much as anything, or do you have a thought on that? I mean, why is that?
I think some of it's weather related. When it gets cold or a little bit of snow, it seems to trigger them a little more. Also, it depends on what unit you're in. If they're comfortable or they don't get a lot of pressure, private, obviously, or, open range where there's not a lot of hunters, they seem to go pretty good there. And then, you'll have 2 or 3 days they're going hard, and the next you wait 3 or 4 more days and then they're back to doing it. So you just never know rhyme or reason.
I know you're an experienced elk hunter and you're a very successful elk hunter. Let's talk a little bit about calling tactics. Now, everybody calls different. It's just like me in the turkey woods. I might call 10 times more than the average caller, or maybe less than some of the others, but I do what works for me. What works for you in the elk woods? What kind of caller are you? And I know every elk is a little different, but on an average hunt, elk are responding like they normally do. What type of a caller are you?
Well, I'm actually one that just cow calls at them a lot. I don't bugle. I have bad luck with it. It seems like they tend to run the other way for some reason. So I very rarely bugle at them. It just doesn't seem to work for me. So I'm more of a cow call, light and easy, and depending on the day. And then sometimes you can get more aggressive with the cow call and they'll come running right in. So that's just my style and it works for me. And so that's just how I go.
Do you like the diaphragm calls, or do you like the reed calls, or do you mix them both together, or what do you?
I'll use the open reed calls, especially here in Colorado, because we got a lot of ground to cover, and obviously the further they can hear you from, the better it is. So I do that, and then when they get closer, I'll switch to the cow call, or the reed for the cow calling, and try to stop them or get them closer so I can draw and do all those things. So.
I'm not near as experienced as you are in the elk woods, but I tend to call a little bit differently. I like to bugle to locate, and then once I locate, and that's only if they're responding. If they're not responding, obviously, then it's a little tougher game. But I like to locate with a bugle, and I try to sound like a younger bull. I don't try to sound like that hoss daddy out in the mountains. But once I locate, I try to slip in, obviously playing the wind. And get in as close as I believe I can, try to get in front of them, and I go to calling. But when you're moving in on a bugling elk, let's say, and I know that you're going to talk about how important the wind is, because out in the mountains, sometimes the thermals are going up, sometimes they're going down, sometimes they're going sideways. So are you constantly checking your wind?
Not really. I do when I get to about 100 yards, and then I start really paying attention to the wind. Cause like you said, the thermals here switch all the time. So we just go until we get close enough that we're worried that the wind switches on them and goes to them. So that's when I really start checking the wind. And then we'll make a move on them. So you can hear them going one way. We'll try to get in front of them, or always try to learn where they're going before we make a move. If we know they're going to go over the next ridge like they have done the last 10 times, we'll just go to that ridge and then try to cut them off at that point. So that's how we do our end over here. So
I know as I've gotten older, I am not maybe in quite as good a shape as I was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago. And it is tough in that kind of terrain. First of all, you've got the air, which is a complete different air. Do you have recommendations on what a Easterner like myself can do to prepare themselves to acclimate? I mean, it's not easy.
Sure. No, it's not easy at all. Only you can do is go find the biggest hill you got and just keep walking up and down it, and do that. Drink lots of water when you get here. Before you get here, best thing you can do is come a day or two early, sit around, get acclimated, get comfortable, walk around a little bit, and then try to get yourself up to that altitude, because a lot of people get altitude sickness here and get in a real bad spot. So
yeah, and I think water is the best thing you can do for that. Now tell folks why they shouldn't drink out of your streams.
You can get a lot of fun diseases that'll not diseases, but some sicknesses that'll put you in your place for a few weeks if you don't get it treated. And that's not pack your water, do that.
What would you say is the single most important thing to have with you on an elk hunt? Now, I'm not talking about if you're bow hunting your bow or if you're gun hunting your gun. I mean, what do you need to survive if there was an issue? I mean, I know there's lots of items, but what's one item you don't go to the woods without?
Sure. Lots of water, obviously. Little space blanket, I call them. Something to start a fire. Always a good pair of boots. I mean, because you can end up walking a lot further than you plan on. Just being able to survive the night. So,
what about GPS? Is that important, you think?
Yeah, depending on where you're at. Where I hunt, it's either up or down, so you can't really get too lost. But just always go downhill if you do lost, and then go to the stream, go down. So you'll find something.
Well, and your area, but when I head out there and I get in those pine groves and aspens and stuff, and everything starts to look the same. And the next thing you know, you're on an elk, and before long, and those darn things, they can cover some ground. Before long, you're 2 or 3 miles from where you started. It can be tough. You can get turned around, I think, pretty easily. At least I can. I don't get lost in my woods here in Iowa, but when I'm out west or in Canada or down in Georgia, it's easy to get turned around, I think.
And that's where the GPS can handy, just back to the truck or back to camp or wherever a safe spot is to go. So,
right now, as far as drawing a tag in Colorado, and I know that there are some zones or areas that require preference points, but first of all, do you know how much it costs for a non-resident to hunt? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, and then how easy is it to get a tag?
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact cost. It's quite a bit. Us for residents is cheap. It's $50 basically, 55 somewhere in there. For you guys, it's several hundred from coming in. And as far as drawing a tag, it depends on which unit. Some units are every other year, others are 10, 15 years. My draw unit 61, and he's at like 15, 16 points to do that. Like you and I've talked about, you coming out and doing a hunt out here. It takes some time. For out-of-staters, it probably takes several more years. So,
yeah, I've got 15 points. So here pretty soon, I hope before I'm too old to walk up and down those hills, I get a chance to get out there and hunt with you. I know that's the plan. Let's see. You have over-the-counter tags too, I think, for some areas, and especially in the bow hunting. So, I mean, a non-resident can go out there. Now, as far as a place to hunt, you have lots of, I call state ground or federal ground or whatever it might be. But, I know you can go to your Department of Natural Resources or whatever you call that. And you can get maps, you can get information on state ground. What's your recommendation on learning an area, and where would you send people? I mean, public ground in Colorado, pretty much anywhere is pretty darn good elk hunting.
Yeah, real good. The best way to learn is just go on Google Earth or, those online map apps that you can get, and they kind of give you a little direction, study the ground, figure out where they're at kind of by just looking where you would think they would go. And just ask people. The local store will tell you, go up in this area, and then you have to do the work from that point. But like the usual, just like you deer hunting, you find the scrapes, the rubs, all that, tracks, anything like that. When you're wandering around, just find them that way.
I've been elk hunting quite a bit over the years, and I've filmed a lot of elk hunts. And I got to tell you, carrying camera equipment and tripods and all that stuff up and down those mountains will absolutely wear you out. But hey, that's the fun of it. It's a lot of fun. So, Paul, I'm going to throw a note in here to Paul, who's behind the scenes. Just to let you know, Paul, I do not have any timeline tonight. I'm not on my laptop, so you will have to kind of give me an idea of when we need to cut this a little shorter here. So, just FYI. All right, let's talk. Okay, good. All right, let's talk a little bit now. You do some mule deer hunting out there as well, Lars?
When I can draw one, you can see that one behind me there. That was a few.
At it.
Yeah, that one was kind of fun. I drew the tag over on the west end of the state. Shot him. One of my best deer I've ever shot, because it's kind of hard to get one. I always try to do it with a bow, and then the elk are bugling, so I get torn both ways. And my love is for elk, so obviously I go for the elk. And if you get a chance at one, you get a chance at one. So I'm not religiously doing it every year, because take a tag takes 2 or 3 years, sometimes longer, depending on where you're at. So yeah, I rarely do it as much as I want. So
I remember a quick story. A mutual friend of ours, J.R. Keller, and we both know him very well, and he lives out in your area. He and I was filming him on an elk hunt years ago, not far from his area, very hilly country, and we were back over a water hole, and we were elk hunting, and a mule deer came in, and he decided mule deer tag, and he decided to shoot this mule deer, which was perfectly fine, and he did. But let me tell you, it was about a 2-mile drag, and I told him never again.
Yeah.
Which leads me to one other thing. When you shoot an elk, it's not like a mule deer. You don't drag them out. Tell the folks what you go through. I mean, the work starts when you put that elk on the ground. What's involved with getting that elk out? What do you find is the easiest way? And I know you can rent mules or get someone to come in and pack them out. And in some areas you might be able to get 4-wheelers, but a lot of places we hunt, you're not allowed to drive 4-wheelers. So what do you do?
Sure. Yeah. We're fortunate, with Wayne, he exposed us to the mules. We got mules, so that's one way we can do it. The other way is you debone them out in the woods and put them on your back and go, and hopefully you aren't very far from a road. But typically that's not the way. The last elk we packed out was a 3-mile one way. And fortunately there were some guys that were hunting near us that helped us out. So we were able to get it out in one trip, but there was 5 of us.
I remember JR and I one year, he shot a pretty good bull, and he and I packed it out, and it was about 3 miles, and we had to make 2 trips, and it took us all day. But so anyways, let's talk a little bit about Western fishing, because you guys have some great trout fishing out in the area, and I'm assuming you do a little bit of that here and there. What's is it fishing season right now, or?
Yeah, there's still a little bit. The runoff starting to happen, so it's kind of tough to fish that. So yeah, we have some gold medal waters here right in town. The Black Canyon of the Gunnison, the Uncompahgre. When we usually fish for little brook trout. We have a cabin up in the mountains, so we pretty much walk off the porch, catch little brook trout. Then a little ways away, we have native cutthroat. One of the only places in the state to catch native cutthroat. So we do that, and it's like a 3-mile hike in to do that, which is a lot of fun to do. Go see some different country and check it all out.
So when you're we didn't talk really about some of the equipment that you might carry in the elk woods, but and we can talk about that a little bit. But do you find that when you're elk hunting, sometimes you're carrying a fly rod or a spinning reel just because you're going to go out and catch your dinner? I mean, is that something you do quite a bit too, or?
Sometimes I don't stay out usually, because I'm fortunate enough to have that cabin, but they have these little expandable fly rods that you put in your pack, and when the elk hunting slow, you can go down to the creek and fish and hang out and do that, and hope you hear an elk bugle and go from there. So, or we put them on the mules at times and do it that way. So
yeah. Now what for the bow hunter, let's say that's out elk hunting, what equipment is important for the bow hunter or gun hunter as far as that goes? I mean, it's probably some of the same equipment, but
sure.
I mean, we talked a little bit about that, but when you're going into the elk woods, you probably have a pack of some sort, because you've got your food and your water and your GPS, all that. But what other things are you taking? You've got something to check the wind, but when your bow, you have a bow sling? What?
I do have a bow sling, and it works pretty good. Just makes the bow lighter. Some of them, we put them in our packs. You can strap them to the pack when you're doing a long hike early in the morning before light. I use an internal frame pack, obviously, just because if you do get one down, like we were talking, you can put a lot of weight on your back to get it out. So you're not a wasted trip to go back to get a frame pack or the mules or, whatever you got to do to get it out. So that's how we do it. And boots, always boots when you're out here. Good pair of boots so your feet don't hurt. That's the best.
So, your archery season, I think, starts sometime in August. Your muzzleloader season starts the middle of September, and your rifle seasons are the end of September into November. If you had to pick one, what would you hunt?
It's always archery for me. That's just, I've only rifle hunted 5 times my whole life, maybe. Just
now, is that because you prefer to bow hunt, or just because you prefer that time of the year better?
Both. I prefer that time of year because it's nice weather. Because we can get a foot of snow in one night in the spring, even or in the fall when we're elk hunting. So it is nice to try to avoid that a little bit. People get stranded all the time out here and have to get rescued, and I don't want to deal with that. So that's why I archery hunt. So weather's decent, nice.
Yeah. What would you say is one of your most memorable elk hunts? Is it, and if you want to go back, I mean, was it with your dad when you started hunting, or was it with us, with me? Maybe no, just kidding. But what is a memorable elk hunt for you?
Well, we had a good one down in New Mexico. That one that we called in, and they shot. But some of the memorable ones when I was a little kid calling for my dad and his friend. I'm just learning. I'm trying to understand. I was a kid wanting to go hunting with them, because that's what I wanted to do. And finally I get old enough that I can keep up with them. And there's this we call them crooked fences, where they put, they stack the logs together to make the fence. Well, the elk are on the other side of the fence, and they're trying to get closer to them. They're moving. I'm calling. And finally the elk's standing there, won't come any closer out of archery range. So I grab a branch and I stick it above the fence and start moving it. And that elk sees it and thinks it's another elk and comes the rest of the way in. And then my dad ended up shooting it. And that's how we went. That was one of my most memorable hunts when I first really did it,
We've always been very successful. We did elk videos for years at a previous company we did work for. And I always thought that it was best to have a hunter. Of course, we had a camera guy that was with the hunter, but to also have a caller that was separate than the hunter, to actually try to draw the elk past the hunter, keeping the attention away from him. Do you still hunt that way today, or are you out there just by yourself?
It depends on who I'm with. If it's me, it's just me doing it. But if someone's with me, I send, they're 15, 20 yards away from me, and we're always playing the wind that way. Not as far as some people. They like to do it 100 yards away or 50 yards away. I want them close so that I can tell them to move or not move. And, those elk are always going to try to get downwind from you. So being mobile is a good thing, and always kind of looking at your surroundings.
I've shot several elk on video over the years, but one of my early ones that I remember, first of all, as living in Iowa and going out west, and just that first bugle that I hear. I mean, there's nothing like it. And the mountains are absolutely gorgeous. I love it out there. And but I remember an elk that I shot. JR actually called it in, and they were back behind me a ways. And some folks might know Philip Vanderpool, but he was filming that hunt. And this elk came down off the mountain and come down in a little drainage and came up bugling at about 15 yards. And I remember shooting right in the middle of his bugle. And a very good elk, but it's one of my most memorable elk hunts for sure. And fortunately, we had help getting it off the mountain. But if you ever get a chance, those that are out there watching, you've got to try elk hunt at least once in your life. It's a phenomenal experience. It really is. And then the turkey hunting. I mean, you had a good turkey hunt this year. Let's talk a little bit about shooting Merriam's in Colorado. I mean, Colorado has some great turkey hunting, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it's great. I was pretty lucky. I don't think I've ever killed one on opening morning. And I was done by 8:45, and that never happens to me. You just got lucky. And, we messed some up the first setup. Next setup, we got kind of caught. There was 5 of them going at once, and, you can't move on them at that point because they're already coming to you. So we just sat down, and my dad obviously was supposed to be the one shooting it, but it came in the wrong direction for him. So I was the one that had to shoot it, unfortunately. So, and I've been
Yeah.
up. Luckily, I've been too busy. So,
Yeah, I'm sure you hated that. Hey, Paul, how are we doing on time? Well, it goes state by state, and Lars can talk about Colorado, but the East, Kansas, South Dakota, New York, Jersey, Maine, Pennsylvania, those all go till the end of May. In fact, Maine, I believe, goes till June 2nd or 3rd. But there are some states like here in Iowa and Kentucky and Indiana and Illinois and Missouri and Ohio, and they're all shut down now. It's all over. What about out where you're at,
sure.
Lars? Is season over?
Yeah, our season runs till the end of this month.
It does.
Yeah, 31st. Yep. So we're all done at that time, and we can only shoot one here in the spring and then one in the fall. You guys can shoot, I don't know how many, but a lot more than us.
Right. Well, I would just tell people, yes. Oh, for say, a muzzleloader, for instance, and I'm sorry, Paul. Oh, for archery. Okay, so what's your setup? Well, I mean, I always shot 100 grain broadhead, and I like the Full Metal Jacket Easton arrows. But what are you shooting, Lars?
I'm shooting pretty much the same setup. I use fixed blade though. That works good for me. They always work for me. I've just heard horror stories about the expandables not working, this and that, but that always comes back to shot placement. Bad shot's a bad shot. So that's my opinion. I shoot an older Bowtech bow.
So. Yep. I shoot a Matthews, but any bow will work. I think I'm not gonna tell people what kind of poundage they should shoot, because I think it depends on the person. But I'm shooting anywhere. I used to shoot 70 pounds for years, but I'm shooting 65 now. Plenty of juice to get through an elk. I shoot 100 grain broadhead as well, and I do like the fixed blade broadheads. And I like mechanicals for deer and turkey especially. But yeah, and I know a lot of people shoot elk with mechanicals, but I do like, if you can get a good fixed blade to fly good, I'm a little more confident with hitting bones, because elk bones are big and they're strong and they're tough. It's not like pushing through a deer. So I do like a fixed blade for that. And I shoot 100 grain, but 100 to 125 grain is, I think, perfectly fine.
Sure.
Yeah. So, Paul, okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the special. And this is something and Lars we didn't get a chance to talk about it too much, but this is something that Lars actually uses and is very instrumental out west, and really anywhere, but certainly out west. I like, it's a spotting scope, and I like a spotting scope when I start scouting in the summer months here in Iowa, because I can really get close and see what I've got early on. But the special of the week is the elk glassing special, we'll call it, but it's the first time we've had a spotting scope. It's the Apex High Definition Spotting Scope Model 888. It's a 20 by 60 by 80, weighs 3.7 pounds, waterproof, lifetime warranty, and I mean, just a great spotting scope, because I've used it and I absolutely love it. But so normal price on the Model 888 is $649.99. We're going to run 54% off of retail. That's the special price, which brings it on the hunt special down to $300. If you're looking for a good spotting scope, not a good spotting scope, a great spotting scope, it's going from $650 all the way down to $300. It's a 20 by 60 by 80, waterproof, lifetime warranty. Doesn't get much better. All you need to do is go to bresserusa.com or alpenoptics.com. select the keyword 888, which is the model number. Select purchase, enter the promo code on the hunt, low casing, no spacing, and you will automatically go from $650 down to $300, and that's good through Sunday. So again, an opportunity at a spotting scope. This is the first time we've had a spotting scope. Lars, I know you have this spotting scope. Do you like it?
I do. I actually enjoy it a lot, especially out here in the big country. Give it a look. You won't be disappointed.
Yep, and it's great anywhere. But anyways, Lars, I want to thank you for being on the show, and I want to thank you for the work you're doing for us. And it's good to see you again, and hopefully we'll get together here in the next year or so and do a little elk hunting. But thank you for being on the show. Next week on the Hunt with Alpen Optics, we have special guest Wayne Shaw from Atlanta, Georgia, and we got a lot to talk about. But for now, I appreciate y'all coming along with us, and we'll see you next Wednesday on the Hunt with Alpen Optics. Good night, everybody.
You know, here we are midsummer here in Iowa, and I'm just out doing some scouting, glassing deer, kind of taking an inventory of what I've got, and doing it from a distance. I've got one of the new Alpen spotting scopes. It's a 20 by 60, but one of the things I really like about this, it comes with a tripod, and it's got micro adjustments, so it's real easy to zoom in and move around and find those animals. But basically, this is a great tool to help me manage the farm all year round. If you're looking for a great way to do some scouting, do it in the evening from a distance with a nice spotting scope. You know, good optics are a must for a hunter. The new Alpen Tetons. They're lighter, they're better in low light, excellent glass. You'll be hard pressed to find that glass for under $1,000. Everything that you would want in a pair of optics. I know what I'm looking for, and once I know what I'm looking for and find what it is, that's what I'm interested in buying. The bottom line is they're affordable, they're lighter, and they're great in low light. The new Alpen Tetons. Another deer coming out. Let's talk a little bit about Alpen and Bresser optics. Now they have a full line of optics, but what I want to talk to you now about is rangefinders. They have several different varieties of handheld rangefinders and the new bow rangefinder. Now for you bow hunters, you go ahead and sight in at 20 yards and you calibrate it to your 20-yard pin, and when you're at full draw, whatever you're pointing that 20-yard pin on an object, it'll tell you the yardage. So whether you like a handheld or you want to put one on your bow, we have both options for you here at Alpen and Bresser Optics. You know, good optics are a must for a hunter, particularly binoculars, not only during hunting season, but times like this when it's time to start scouting. But there's one thing you need to do when you get your binoculars that a lot of people don't realize. You need to set them up for yourself. Everybody's eyes are a little bit different. And here's how I do it. It's simple and easy. Just take the binoculars and just kind of grab good focus on an object. And I go and put my hand over the left lens. The diopter ring, which is on the right side, I will go ahead and adjust that until that right eye is in focus. Once it is, I take the hand off the other side, both eyes in focus, and you're ready to go. It's simple and easy, and it's a must that you do this before you go out and use them.